Hi everyone, Philipa Thornton, Director of the Resource Therapy Institute Australia and Vice President of Resource Therapy International. Welcome. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about our resources and offer you a little opportunity to think about them in a new way. A lot of people we train struggle to remember the conditions of our resource states, remembering there are 5 conditions. Number 1 is normal, number 2 is vaded, number 3 is retro, number 4 is conflicted, and number 5 is dissonant. Today I'm going to talk about the vaded states. They're the majority of our work in resource therapy. That's what most of my clients coming in to see me have, vaded states. Now remembering there are a few of them. And I'm going to give you a shortcut to remembering them. And in another video, I'm going to drill down into the resource therapy actions that are involved in them. So the first one we have is the vaded in rejection. Don't you like our little VIR? The. Just to remind you, vaded in rejection are resource states that feel unlovable or incompetent in situations. So of course we use diagnosis. That's our key starting point for any resource therapy session. And remember, resource therapy action 1, diagnosis is where we diagnose the problem. That's the person's presenting problem according to their symptoms and what's going on with them, not the person. So I love that about it. And in vaded and rejection, VIR, we use resource therapy actions 1 to 8. And with the supplementary action, resource therapy action 12, imagery check, and I'll go more into that in the next video. So that's VIR, vaded in rejection, VIR. And of course that brings us next to another state, vaded in disappointment. Now vaded in disappointment, VID, that's your shortcut mnemonic. States vaded in disappointment will block other states. They are the states that are involved with depression. When our expectations are not met, that can lead us to feeling a lot of despair, and it's actually low mood. So of course there's an evolutionary perspective on that. It's a good thing to take time to process, but it can affect our lives so negatively that it blocks other states from getting us out into the world again. So VID is vaded in disappointment states, and there's different resource therapy actions for that. And then we have VIC. Now VIC is short for states vaded in confusion. States in VIC, vaded in confusion, will ruminate typically. Why did this happen? What went wrong? They're the why. They're the ruminators. States vaded in VIC are vaded in confusion and need changing chairs, interject action, changing chairs action, resource therapy action 9 and some others I'll go into. And that helps, especially in terms of unrequited love. A lot of people I see who can't get past a relationship breakup. That is fantastic, dealing with the vaded in confusion, using the resource therapy actions for that particular vaded state. It's fantastic. I've had great success. It's particularly wonderful for states vaded in complicated grief, where they just can't get over a particular loss. And now I'll move on to another common vaded state between vaded and rejection. The number 1 is number 2 is probably vaded in fear, VIF. Vaded in fear states are where unwanted emotion, of course remember vaded is unwanted emotion, come out at times which don't fit the current situation. Often involving presentations with our clients with anxiety, phobias, of course, vaded in fear, VIF. I've treated many phobias, simple and complex phobias actually, that translate, and we need to bridge back to where that state was vaded in fear, or in PTSD we'll know where that state was vaded in fear, and there can be an element of vaded in rejection to that, but that's using resource therapy actions 1 to 8, and we don't do the interject speak, resource therapy action 5, and that resource therapy vaded in fear. And last but not least, I'm also going to talk to you about our retro states. Remember, vaded unwanted emotion and retro states carry out unwanted behavior. Now that's the key component. It must be unwanted by your client. A lot of people are unhappy and act out and road rage and all sorts of things, but it's not unwanted behavior unless they are ready to change. Remembering our first question always when we use to diagnose people's problems in resource therapy is, what are you ready to change today? And they'll come up with a behavior that's no longer serving them. Now, as we know in resource therapy, retro states can be retro-original or retro-avoiding. So here's a little mnemonic. There are RARO, that's retro-avoiding or retro-original. Now, our retro-avoiding states are those states that are involved in addictive behaviors. They help us escape, withdraw from pain, either by zoning out in addictions. It could be gambling, it could be drinking, it could be substance use. Those are because they avoid an emotional state. So obviously we're going to be doing our vaded work, and probably vaded in fear of rejection, using one actions resource therapy 2 to 8 there, bridging back using resource therapy action to the initial sensitizing event. Now, retro-originals, they are believed to have been formed in childhood as a coping response for a situation, and they continue on into adulthood. Good example of that, RARO, retro-original, is sulking, pouting, childish type sort of behavior. Actually, for retro-originals, I will usually bridge back to childhood because there's usually an unmet need happening that serves to bring that retro-original into play. And the key thing with retro-originals is they have no emotion. It's a behavior. They'll just do what they do. They are the savior in the moment. So let me go through again, remembering our retros perform unwanted behaviors, and the way to remember that is with RARO, retro-avoiding, or retro-original in childhood. This is present day, usually formed in adulthood as a coping response, an inappropriate coping response to unwanted emotional things going on. The VIF, vaded in fear, and VIC, vaded in confusion, wonderful for grief and loss, unrequited love, hurt, to be able to help people get past things. Vaded in disappointments, VID, these are the states involved in depression and that come on deck and take over the personality, those resources. They're very powerful and they're helping, because in resource therapy we believe all our states are there to help. And of course, last but not least, vaded in rejection, VER. Now, vaded in rejection is very common. So and I'm going to do another video to go through the steps of each of those. Thank you very much. If you like this, please comment, subscribe, and share the help with others. Share it on social media, share it on email or text. Philipa Thornton saying thank you for listening, and welcome any comments, queries, or questions you have. I hope you found this helpful. Have a lovely day. Bye.